Back then, I didn't know I was being a nice guy. This story happened back, I think, in 2018 or 19. I was dating this girl for just a couple weeks. We've been out a few times. Nothing serious. And I'd read some of the books, done some of the work, so I thought. But I was still being a modern, new age, spiritual guy, trying to be overly understanding. Yes, it's important to know and understand women, but not to be a pushover. At the time in this story, I told myself I wasn't. This is the first time, we'll call this girl Lisa, it was in Colombia, so her name is definitely not Lisa, that she was gonna meet a lot of my friends. I had a party at my place. There was gonna be, whatever there was, 25, 30 people there. And a day or two before the party, she asks, hey, can I bring John? Which John is her ex-boyfriend. She still works with John. And my initial answer, connected to my power, or somewhat at the time, was no, of course not. Why would you bring John to my party? Like, that's weird. And then I'm like, oh, well, I want to be supportive and understanding and da-da-da-da. Granted, this is 7-8 years ago. So I go, okay, sure, you can bring John. So I'm there with Lisa. We're having the party. Things are going good for a while. And then John comes in, talks to Lisa on the balcony, and they're talking for it was a while, man. It had to be 45 minutes. And I turned to another female friend. I go, is this kind of weird? She goes, it's really fucking weird. I was like, okay, I thought so. Again, not standing in my power. This is 7 or 8 years ago. Trying to be too accommodating, too understanding, rather than just saying no. And a lot of us as guys, we're afraid to say no when a woman actually wants us to say no. She wants to know what's tolerable, what's intolerable. You'll hear more on my channel about talking about women testing to see how strong you are, testing because they have a lot of pain and unhealed stuff. It could be testing to know, are they safe? Are you going to hold the line? Are you going to hold the boundaries? If you'll fold under their pressure, under their pushing, well, then who's to say you're not going to fold under much more challenging things out there in the real world? So John shows up, talking to Lisa on the balcony for 45 minutes. This is weird. Again, talk to my female friend. She's like, yeah, that's super fucking weird. And John leaves. I go in my bedroom with Lisa. Of the apartment, all the walls are glass. So while I'm in my bedroom, there's still people on the balcony who can see into my bedroom because all the bedrooms, the living room, everything is glass. She's like, yeah, John said you did this, or, he doesn't like you, or I forgot what it was. I think it was he doesn't like you. And at that point, I'd connected to my balls again. I was like, well, why would I care if John doesn't like me? Well, John thinks da-da-da-da-da. So we're talking. I don't remember exactly. I remember her just saying, John doesn't like you, and me at that point being like, why would it matter? And all of a sudden, I'm sitting there, and I'm sitting at the foot of my bed, right? So she's sitting at the headboard. So she's facing the door. My back is to the door. I'm sitting there and I start getting hit on the back of the head. I'd never been sucker punched before, and it was just really surreal. I remember thinking just 3 things. This is actually happening. It was like everything was like slowed down and sped up. This is actually happening. You need to end this motherfucker and protect her. Now, John, we're in Colombia. John happens to be an Asian guy, so I didn't know, does this guy know martial arts? Am I gonna get beat up? I'd practiced boxing, kickboxing, things like that. Turned out John didn't know martial arts. We started throwing each other around the bedroom, hitting each other, all this stuff. Someone pulls me off of John, I get away, I get back on John. Then this was another shift of a moment. A guy who I barely know, the biggest guy there, tells John, you got to get the fuck out. John goes to leave. John doesn't leave. And then the second biggest guy there, he just stands there and watches. His wife drags John out, throws him out. I tell the girl to leave. She proceeds to sit in the lobby and call me and apologize and this and that. And I say, hey, I know you're in a relationship with, I didn't say you're in a relationship. I said, you're still in a relationship with this guy. She's like, no, I'm not. We broke up a year ago or 2 years ago, whatever it was. I was like, yeah, the fact that you needed to invite this guy to my party when you're meeting my friends shows he is important enough in your life that whether you like it or not, you're still kind of in a relationship with him, even if you're not romantically linked. Why am I telling this story? I don't know why she invited him. It's kind of irrelevant. Maybe she wanted him to come. But the moral of this story is I was disconnected from my balls, which ironically brought out my fire by having to fight. And I wasn't standing in my power. What would have made everything better is just saying no. At that point, she could have broke up with me. We weren't even dating, or we were dating, we weren't together. But she could have said, hey, you don't want to have John at your party, I'm out. Instead, it created a huge, big, dramatic mess with her sitting in the lobby, crying for 2 or 3 hours, calling, saying, how can we work this out, this and that, and me saying, no, 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 and then never talking to her again, really, until she reached out probably a year later, which I admired, and she apologized. Said, hey, I didn't think about this and that, and I was in the wrong, which, I could respect that she recognized where she was. Now, why is this important? So many times as guys, we give our power away. I can think of other times women asked me things in relationships or in dating where I was trying to be kind, so I said, or pleasing, or a pleaser, big difference. People want someone who's kind and pleasing. People don't want a pleaser. Men don't even want a pleaser, even if they think they do. Women especially don't, because then they know they have to lead the relationship, which feels heavy and shitty, and it's like they want to be in the passenger seat in the car of life, looking at mountains, looking at butterflies as someone's taking care of everything, and they're along for the ride. Instead, when we can't own our power, when we can't say no, when we can't, communicate a clear boundary, they have to be the one in charge, which women will do. A lot of women have gotten way too used to, but they don't want to do. If you're watching this with a woman by chance, she'll tell you right now, if she's honest, she doesn't want to do that. Women are exhausted doing that. And guys, we've been confused probably the last 40, maybe almost 50 years of being raised by single moms oftentimes, where dad's not really there, having mainly female teachers, and trying to be the guy who's essentially getting mommy's approval, even if you don't think you are. You're like, well, no, I'm just trying to get an A in math class. Well, a lot of times how we're showing up with our female teacher in middle school is an extension of how we're showing up with mom. We're seeking approval rather than knowing who we are, knowing where we're going, and doing that and saying yes to what we need to say yes to and no what we need to say no to. I remember back, and I'll close with this, a girlfriend, this is probably a decade ago. After we broke up, I wasn't in my power back then. And she said, I just want to be with a guy who knows who he is and knows where he's going. And she thought I was that, and this is 10 and a half years ago or something. I wasn't. I thought I was back then, back at 29, 30, whatever it was. I'm 40 now. Instead, I was being too wishy-washy and too indecisive and trying to do the right thing rather than just saying this is what it is. And what's beautiful about that, especially if you're in a new relationship, if you say, hey, this is who I am, this is what I want, a woman has every right to say, oh, I don't like the direction you're going. That's it. You might be afraid of losing the connection. But if she thinks what you're doing, the way you want to live your life, you want to travel the world, you want to do this, and she wants to live in the same, house and have a Labrador and a picket fence, whatever it is that you have two different visions of life, that's okay. What's not okay is when we become the nice guy, we become the pleaser, we lose our balls. And what makes it even worse is when we don't take responsibility and we blame it on the woman. Oh, it's my ex-girlfriend, it's my mom, it's the feminist movement. And the truth is, we just didn't stand in our power, make a decision, and know when to say no. Thanks for tuning in, gents. See you soon.